It is 9:05.
Your conference will begin momentarily. Please continue to hold. Your conference will begin momentarily. Please continue to hold.
The time is 9:15 a.m.
I will now take roll call to confirm attendance. Please unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. Supervisor Mitchell.
Present.
Supervisor Kuehl.
Here.
Supervisor Hahn.
Present.
Supervisor Barker.
Here.
Agent Davenport, Chief Executive Officer. Present. Rodrigo Castro Silva, County Counsel.
Here.
Celia Zavala, Executive Officer of the Board. Here. Great. As indicated on the posted agenda, we will be taking telephonic public comment separately for regular agenda items and public hearing items during today's meeting. The Executive Office of the Board received over 3,800 written public comments for today's meeting. And as those written comments were received, All of them were available to the supervisors for their consideration, consistent with the Brown Act requirements. We will continue to receive written comments throughout the meeting, which will become part of the official record. Madam Executive Officer, please call the agenda.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. Today's agenda will begin on page 2, Senate Matter 10:30 a.m. Item S1 is a discussion of the public health order related to COVID-19. This item will be held for discussion. On page 3, Special District Agendas. This is the agenda for the Los Angeles County Development Authority. On item 1D, this includes a revision as indicated on the supplemental agenda. On item 3D, this is in addition to the as indicated on the supplemental agenda. This item relates to item 61F. On page 5, this is the agenda for the Regional Park and Open Space District. On page 6, public hearings, items 1 through 7. On item 6, the Executive Officer of the Board requests that this item be continued to July 27, 2021, as indicated on the supplemental agenda. On item 7, this item is continued to July 27, 2021, to meet legal requirements as indicated on the posted agenda. The remaining items will be held for hearing. On page 9, consent calendar, Board of Supervisors, items 8 through 36. On item 9, Supervisor Kill requests that this item be held. On item 10, Supervisor Kill requests that this item be held. On item 13, Supervisor Hahn requests that this item be held. On item 14, this includes a revision as indicated on the supplemental agenda. On item 21, Supervisor Barger requests that this item be held. On item 22, Supervisor Solis, Supervisor Mitchell, and Supervisor Kuhl request to be recorded as a no vote. Therefore, this motion fails to carry for the lack of 3 votes. On item 27, Supervisor Solis requests that this item be held. This includes an amendment by Supervisor Mitchell as indicated on the supplemental agenda. On item 31, Supervisor Solis requests that this item be held. This includes a revision as indicated on the supplemental agenda. On items 32, 33, and 34, Supervisor Mitchell requests that these items be held. On item 35, Supervisor Mitchell requests that this item be continued to July 13, 2021. This includes a revision as indicated on the supplemental agenda. On page 40, Administrative Matters, items 37 through 63. On item 37, the Chief Executive Officer requests that this item be continued to August 10, 2021, as indicated on the posted agenda. On item 44, the Director of Mental Health requests that this item be referred back to the department as indicated on the posted agenda. On item 50, this includes a revision as indicated on the supplemental agenda. On item 55, Supervisor Mitchell requests that this item be held. On page 54, this includes miscellaneous additions to the agenda, which were posted more than 72 hours in advance of the meeting as indicated on the supplemental agenda. On item 61A, Supervisor Hahn requests that this item be held. On item 61C, Supervisor Barger requests that this item be held. On item 61D, Supervisor Barger would like to revise the last bullet of the first directive to a detailed definition of what services will be included in a homeless triage center, how services will be located and provided, by whom, how the homeless triage services, and any resulting increased demand for follow-up treatment and housing could it be funded. How these triage services will be different from other currently available homeless outreach approaches, and how data would be collected so that efficacy is regularly and timely monitored and reported. On item 61E, Supervisor Barger requests that this item be held. On item 61J, Supervisor Solis requests a revised motion to include the Chief Sustainability Officer in the directive and include green condo before the confluence area in directive number 2. The request for continuances and refer back through 61K are before you.
Moved by Supervisor Kuhl, seconded by Supervisor Barger to approve these items. That will be the order.
On page 55, ordinance for introduction. On page 56, notices for closed session. On item CS1, this includes a revision to change the number of cases from 3 to 2. On item CS3 is an addition. On item CS4 is an addition as indicated on the supplemental agenda. That completes the reading of the agenda, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. At this time, we will now hear from Sheriff Villanueva, who requested to address the board on item 27. Sheriff, you have 3 minutes. Please begin. Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am. This is Lieutenant Blanche, is the executive aide for Sheriff Villanueva. We were told he was going to speak after public comment at about 10:30.
He was notified, I believe, that this was the time that he would be recognized.
No, ma'am. We were told 10:30.
Well, this is the time that we have the set, agenda for public comment, so he would be going out of order. So can you call him and let him know that, if he wants to come in during this hour, he can notify us and we'll let him in, okay?
Yeah, no, I will do that, ma'am.
All right, I appreciate that. Okay, thank you. We will now take public comments for all agenda items, excluding public hearing items 1 through 7. Madam Executive Officer, please read the call-in information that was also provided on the agenda and explain the speaking rules to those members of the public who are calling in to address the board.
As indicated on the agenda, members of the public wishing to offer public comment should call 877-226-8163 and use participant code number 133-6503. To repeat, please call 877-226-8163 and use participant code number 133-6503. Do not call that number if you only want to listen to the meeting. To listen only, please call 877-873-8017 and follow the instructions. To members of the public calling in, when it's your turn to speak, please state your name and which agenda items you wish to speak on. You have 1 minute to speak on one agenda item or 2 minutes to speak on 2 or more agenda items. In addition, those who would like to address the board with general public comment will be provided 1 additional minute for a maximum total up to 3 minutes. We will allocate up to 60 minutes for public comment on all of the items, excluding the public hearing items. If there are no speakers waiting before 60 minutes have lapsed, we will close public comment. We will continue to accept all written comments that come in during the meeting, which will become part of the record. When speaking on the agenda items, you must be on topic. Our goal is to get through as many speakers as we can. If you're not speaking on the topic or if we cannot tell if you're speaking on an agenda item, you will get 1 warning from County Council or the Chair. If you do not immediately or clearly get on topic or we stray off topic again, you will forfeit the rest of your time and the Chair will move to the next speaker. Please note, if you're also listening to the board meeting on a computer or speakerphone, you will need to turn down the volume on those devices as soon as the moderator calls on you. If you do not turn down the volume, there will be an echo. Moderator, may we have the first speaker, please?
As a reminder, to address the board, if you have not already done so, please press 1 and then 0 at this time. Do not press 1 and 0 a second time, or you will be removed from the queue.
We will now hear the Spanish interpretation of this reminder.
Como recordatorio para dirigirse a la Junta de Supervisoras, si aún no lo ha hecho, presione 1 y luego 0 en este momento. No presione 1 y 0 por segunda vez o será eliminado de la fila. Gracias.
Thank you. May we have the first speaker, please?
Our first participant is Bambi Estelzico. Please state your regular agenda items you are addressing today and whether you will address on general public comment. You may begin.
Just good morning, Board of Supervisors. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. My name is Bambi Salcedo, and I am the President and the CEO of the Central Canal Coalition. I'm speaking on item number 36, which speaks of the importance of having the county clinics really creating a model that will support young trans and gender non-conforming individual to be able to have access to adequate health care. This motion is important for our community because it will set precedents that the county system will be able to support those individuals who continue to be marginalized while trying to access healthcare services. I really appreciate the support with this motion, and I hope that you endorse it and vote on favor of this motion. Thank you so much for the opportunity to address you this morning.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Our next participant is Yvette Ale. Please state the regular agenda items you are addressing today, and whether you will be addressing General.
Good morning, Yvette Ale with Dignity and Power Now in the Justice LA Coalition, resident of District 5. I would like to speak on agenda items 10, 20, 30, 31, 33, 34, 35, 55, 61C, 61D, 61G, and general public comment. I'm going to start off with item number 27 and commend Supervisor Solis and Supervisor Kuhl for continuing to be a champion for closing Men's Central Jail and moving its Care First vision forward. The Justice LA Coalition encouraged our thousands of members to write in support of this motion. But today, I want to communicate the nuance of that support. We don't want the board to conflate our support for the closure of MCJ with the support for this strategy of closing MCJ. The board received a detailed report earlier this year on how to close this dilapidated and deadly jail. However, the MCJ closure report, which was delivered, provides that detailed plan without having to reiterate another bureaucratic hurdle in order to close this jail. The closure plan is straightforward, and I'm concerned that this new structure and process would cause additional delays in addition to the bureaucratic hurdles when the board has the power to direct the CEO to close MCJ now. It is important that the board acts swiftly and acts with purpose in order to close this jail but implement the Care First vision. I also strongly support items 10 and 31. I'm glad Sandy Salcedo was able to speak this morning. It is important on agenda item 31 that gender-affirming care is delivered by trans and gender and non-conforming people and intersex people. It is critical that they be funded, and these organizations like Trans Latina Coalition are given the adequate resources to be able to provide that gender-affirming care. It's also important that we fund resources for our LGBTQ youth coming out of the foster care, which we know is another pipeline to incarceration. In general public comment, I want to elevate the need for the board to act swiftly to hold the sheriff accountable for what's happening in Venice right now. And you can do that by defunding the host program and shifting those dollars to community-based services. I also want to elevate the need to reject a tech takeover of the LA County jobs at 211. The 211 LA program has provided vital services for Angelinas for decades and has provided community members with good paying union jobs and benefit packages. Yet the board is willing to hand this contract over to a major conglomerate corporation like Amazon or Google. I'm shocked at this. We stand by our labor partners. We stand by union jobs that are caring for our communities. We cannot allow for this shift to happen and for these union jobs to be lost. So I ask you to please preserve the 211 jobs within the union. Also support item 61G, Assembly Bill 958. I also support the motion 61D, the establishing triage centers to engage and serve people experiencing houselessness. This is critical. I also want to voice my opposition to 61C, enhancing enforcement against illegal cannabis dispensaries. The allocation of $250,000 to LAFC for enhanced enforcement is against illegal cannabis dispensaries is unnecessary and harmful. We know that for generations...
Excuse me, your time has expired. May we have the next speaker, please?
Our next comment will come from Zachary Warma. Please state the regular agenda items you are addressing today, and whether you will address them for comment. You may begin.
Good morning. Zachary Warma, Legislative Affairs Manager with the Downtown Women's Center, calling on item number 20 and general public comment. Supervisors, as an early endorser of the Our Future Los Angeles Coalition and a strong supporter of Senate Bill 679, DWC believes that the proposed Los Angeles County Affordable Housing Solutions Agency, or La Casa, offers a historic opportunity to produce the volume of desperately needed affordable housing stock across Los Angeles County in a way that centers equity and the need for our most vulnerable communities. SB 679 addresses the question of how we add to our collective efforts and bring the 88 cities together together, along with Los Angeles County leadership, using new tools and strategies to address housing affordability. LaCosta will help bring together the fragmented affordable housing efforts across the county and help us create a comprehensive, holistic vision and approach to supporting low-income and working people. This board continues to drive a progressive housing-first vision for Los Angeles County. The Our Future Coalition, a broad array of organizations committed to structural change in LA County, urges this board to view SB 679 not as a competition, but rather as a new tool, partner, and asset in its work to bring people housed across the county. And as a general public comment, today is, again, another testament to this board helping foster a more equitable Los Angeles County. From the veteran-enhanced residential community of Palmdale, continuing to push for the closure of Men's Central Jail, ensuring LGBTQ plus and gender-affirming healthcare for all Angelenos, developing the Community Crisis Response and Violence Interruption Program, and establishing triage centers for unhoused Angelenos. Through the leadership of this board, we are truly making Los Angeles County a more welcoming place for all. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jonathan Yang. Please state the regular agenda items you're addressing today and whether you will address some general public comment. You may begin.
Thank you. I'm addressing general public comment at items 32 and 34. My name is Jonathan Yang on behalf of Public Counsel and also a resident of the 3rd District. We support the board taking these key steps to provide targeted relief to those small businesses who have been overlooked and underserved so far. We provide pro bono legal aid to small businesses that come from and serve our most marginalized communities, including early care and education providers. During the pandemic, they weren't lucky enough to have cooperative landlords or fair commercial leases, and what little relief funding they could access was too little or too late. But rent debt kept coming even when help didn't, and that looming wave is already driving the harassment, unlawful lockouts, and aggressive collection efforts that we're seeing, many of which are trying to get around the eviction moratorium. It ultimately puts these community members at risk of not only losing their business, but of personal financial devastation for them and their families, all through little fault of their own. When so many other larger businesses have been rightly shielded from the worst impacts of COVID, we cannot leave these most local of our small businesses on their own to suffer disproportionately. We support item 32 as a long overdue effort, bringing us in line with other jurisdictions around the country to finally center issues facing our most vulnerable small businesses that we have to address for truly equitable recovery. It fills gaps in the eviction moratorium, and it goes further to start the county on a pathway to resolve the looming burden of COVID rent debt and reduce collateral consequences so that these tenants and landlords alike can all move on. Just as importantly, we support the forward-looking aspects of items 32 and 34. 34 is critical to ensuring that early care and education providers not only meet the needs of our communities, but thrive in their own right as small businesses. We further appreciate how item 32 seeks to give recovering and future small businesses a fighting chance by establishing permanent anti-harassment protections and exploring tools for long-term affordability of commercial spaces. We don't think that item 32's focus on overlooked businesses, small businesses, stops the county from dealing with the other distinct issues faced by the broader spectrum of small businesses. Instead, item 32 recognizes that COVID was an unexpected crisis that hit all of us, but whose economic harm should not fall disproportionately on those small businesses and marginalized communities. We look forward to working with you on these important efforts to ensure an equitable recovery for LA County. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
As a reminder, to address the board, if you have not already done so, please press 1 then 0 at this time. Do not press 1 and 0 a second time, or you will be queued. Our next comment will come from David Gillette. Please state the regular agenda items you are addressing today and whether you will address our general public comment. You may begin.
I'm addressing item 21, general public comment as well, 3 items total. My name is Dave Gelati. I'm a fire captain, engine 9B, station 16. I am also the president of Local 1014, the union representing over 3,300 members in our fire families, but today my voice is on behalf of every person who is part of the LA County fire family. And I rise to seek a 5-vote yes in approval of item 21, the substitute motion before you. On June 1st, our fire family, your family, our world was rocked to its core. And as a result, the light is shining once again on firefighter behavioral health issues and some glaring working conditions items that need not only action, but frankly, Board of Supervisor partnership, oversight, and accountability. Let me first start by saying also that leadership accountability and leadership change must accompany any and all work on the items listed and more. that we speak of in this motion, or frankly, there will be no change. I've spoken directly with the fire chief about this candidly, and it will not be the last you've heard of this. The constant theme of the rank and file and the folks out there is the disconnect between the business admin and the sworn mission of the rank and file firefighters. On the motion itself, I'll be back in your offices, each and every one of them, to give you more testimony on the particulars. But a few bullet points, I would suggest that you amend this to be a 30-day report back and an ongoing report. 60 days is too long, and this is not a one-and-done report. On the items in the bullet points, I'll reserve the comments for when I come to your office. It's too detailed to get in 2 or 3 minutes here. But I can tell you this, we have good, capable folks on the management side, the labor side, and within this organization that tackle each and every one of these bullet points, centering not only on behavioral health issues, but the working conditions issues at the core of our working conditions that exacerbate our fatigue and our behavioral health issues. With that, I seek a 5-vote yes. I'm available for questions, and again, I will submit in writing to you on the motion and seek out more time in each of your offices to give you details on each and every one of the bullet points in this motion. Thank you for your leadership.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Our next speaker will be Ruby Rivera. Please state the regular agenda items you're addressing today and whether you will address on general public comment. You may begin.
Good morning, everyone. I will be speaking on items 9, 20, 27, 28, 30, 32, 33, 34, and 35. My name is Ruby Rivera. I am a tenant in Supervisorial District 2 in the city of Linwood and the daughter of a small landlord. I'm calling in support of the Healthy LA platform. I enthusiastically support agenda item 9, the county motion to extend the county order providing eviction protections to millions of tenants across LA County. Despite the recent reopening of the state economy, tenants are still struggling to find work, access rental assistance, and pay full rent moving forward. The only sensible move is for the eviction protections to be extended while tenants continue to recover from this global pandemic. I urge the board to extend the protections even farther than the proposed September 30th date. Tenants need to have strong eviction protections for longer in order to successfully get through the rental assistance process and to become debt-free. I also ask the board to continue banning evictions by a landlord who is attempting to move in. We are still recovering from the effects of this pandemic, and tenants should not be evicted so soon by comparatively wealthier landlords who have no problems displacing tenants during a global pandemic. At minimum, landlords should not be able to displace vulnerable tenants and should pay relocation assistance to those that they do displace through eviction. The only solution to the debt-free recovery is to keep LA housed. Let's find ways to address the debt and support small landlords. I support items 28, 32, and 34. I urge you to take immediate action to ensure that all residents of LA County are able to access living wages and stable employment throughout LA County. We must also work to create infrastructure that allows our most vital community businesses to thrive. Lastly, we must support economic recovery for all LA County residents, prioritizing those facing the greatest barriers to financial stability and economic mobility. And I support and urge you to support items 27, 30, and 33 and the entire Reimagine LA platform. The county must adopt the Care First vision. The Alternatives to Incarceration work group established by the County Board of Supervisors in 2019 rightly developed a Care First, Sales Less vision, centering needs of people and community-based resourcing over incarceration and criminalization. But the current recommended 21-22 county budget does not reflect that vision. We need you to correct this and secure critical progress for our communities by adopting the Care First budget. Thank you very much. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Our next speaker will come from the line of Katie McKeon. Please state the regular agenda items you're addressing today and whether you will address on general public comment. You may begin.
Good morning, Katie McEwen speaking on agenda item number 9 in general public comment. I'm a staff attorney with Public Counsel, a legal aid organization here in LA County, and also an SD2 resident. I'm calling in strong support of agenda item number 9, the motion to extend the county moratorium on evictions. Many of us had a lot to celebrate this past week with the reopening of the economy, but we should not confuse reopening with recovery. Almost 300,000 tenants remain at risk of eviction in LA County. In this past quarter, California still had some of the highest unemployment rates in the country, and the LA region has some of the highest unemployment rates of any metro region across the nation. Tenants are bearing the brunt of these high unemployment numbers and are carrying crushing amounts of debt that won't disappear overnight without help that the state has failed to give by failing to distribute rental assistance quickly and efficiently. Small landlords are struggling too. especially black and brown mom and pop owners who typically have fewer resources to weather a situation where a tenant is unable to pay. Given this reality, our focus needs to be on maintaining the status quo of eviction protections and resolving the debt for tenants and small landlords alike. If we do not, the county will be faced with a greater bill supporting tenants who are displaced and small landlords who will see their generational wealth wiped out. For these reasons, the county must extend the eviction protections today and double down on supporting rent debt relief measures so that we can enjoy both reopening and recovery. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Our next speaker will come from one of Frankie Carrillo. Please state the regular agenda items you're addressing today, and you may begin.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Frankie Carrillo. I will be speaking on item number 27 and providing a general public comment. Thank you, Supervisor Solis, for offering this motion, the jail closure implementation team, and obviously Supervisor Kuehl for cooperating. At the age of 16, I was arrested and eventually wrongfully convicted here in LA County. On my 18th birthday, I was transferred to Men's Central. I was transferred from Central Juvenile Hall over to Men's Central Jail because I was now considered an adult. I heard horror stories of this jail, and I prayed that my case would be resolved and I would go home, but instead I went there. I spent the next 20 years in a maximum security prison. I endured horrific physical and psychological abuse behind bars before being exonerated in 2011. But nothing compared to the year I spent at Men's Central Jail. It was the worst of the worst. When I think of the trauma of being wrongfully imprisoned, I think of and remember the Men's Central Jail. The jail is antiquated and filled with security flaws that are taken advantage both by inmates and deputies. It is mismanaged and mostly operated by new sheriff deputy recruits that see the jail as a training ground, a place to prove themselves, and the place where they can apply aggressive tactics to unleash fear and brutality on those jailed there, before obviously being assigned to a substation or patrolling the community. The board and the public should know that these jails are being improperly used to incarcerate people who have serious needs and who are going through the worst episode of their lives. Jails are never going to fix the answer to their personal problems or our collective social problems. If we want to keep the public safe, we need to start with closing Men's Central Jail and expand our investment in our community. Our residents need resources, they need services, they don't need jails. I urge the Board of Supervisors to vote in support of Solis' motion to close the Men's Central Jail. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
As a reminder, to address the board, if you have not already done so, please press 1 then 0 at this time. Do not press 1 and 0 a second time, or you will be removed from the queue.
Can we have the first speaker, please?
Our next speaker will come from line of David Arquez. Please state the regular agenda items you're addressing today and whether you'll be addressing on general public comment. You may begin.
Hi, my name is David Arquette, and I'm calling in regards to agenda number 36. I support it, and I thank you all for your support, please. I'm a volunteer and a supporter of the Violence Intervention Program and the incredible work Dr. Astrid Hagar does. I've seen it firsthand, and it's really helping the most vulnerable in our community, so I thank you for your support, and I thank Supervisor Solis for bringing this motion forward. Thank you.
Thank you. May we have the next speaker, please?
Next speaker will be line of Eric Previn. Please state the regular agenda items you're addressing today and whether you'll address on general public comment. You may begin.
Yeah, I will speak on several of the items, including 27, 30, 40, 15, 11, and I'll also give a little general public comment. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Yes, 3 minutes. Please begin.
All right, thank you. It's a miracle that I was able to get through, and I'm very pleased. I'm not pleased about the outset sheriff squabble. I don't think it's appropriate to get into confusing arguments with the elected sheriff, even though he's been very difficult. He should be given time, just like everybody else, and there should be more meetings and regular meetings. Now, advocates across the state are asking the state actually to keep the eviction ban in place, at least until the unemployment rate among low-wage workers has dropped to pre-pandemic levels. That seems like a good idea. I don't know how the unincorporated area racing ahead of that is more than headline grabbing, but we should do it. Jails Last, obviously, is a great idea, but it's important to not pivot to children and children family services first, because I've noticed a uptick, and Sheila is presiding over that empire of horror. We don't need a lot of people meddling in the lives of Angelinos. We need good information and reportable stuff, but we don't need endless legal struggles between members of the same family. Okay, that's a terrible idea, and it's been overbuilt up, starting with family court, and I know everybody's delighted with the good work of Mr. Golightly and all the snarling up of people's lives, but we need to help people. Okay, that's a good idea. Now, I like this interesting idea of inclusive hiring, where we're going to waive the citizenship requirements to work at LA County. Fascinating. I mean, right now I think a lot of people work in LA County but can't work for LA County, where you would get a good job and a pension and everything else. They work for one of the numerous Prop A subcontractors who pay them as little as possible. So I don't know. Closed sessions, I was fascinated to hear that on the unlabeled closed sessions, we are reducing at CS1 from 3 to 2 unlabeled cases. So which case was dropped? Sheila, you'll get back to us on that one. Thank you. Nobody goes into the mobile stroke unit advocacy business with clean hands, and I very much appreciate this. I looked at the data. The data is so important. Apparently, they looked at 100 patients who were treated by such a unit rather than by traditional emergency department. In 27 cases, the person was less disabled, and this is a heart stopper. 11 of those patients were not disabled at all. So this is just a miracle. So we should roll that out. And thank you to Supervisor Hahn and Mr. Ridley Thomas, who had the good sense to start that kind of advanced stroke care in LA County, while presiding over one of the worst nursing home death rates ever, up 32% in 2020. And those were not people who were going to die anyway. So that is a great disappointment. Item 18 is the breast aggregations, big mush together of multiple celebrations of breastfeeding. I love breastfeeding as much as the next guy, but I would rather have them be singled out and have more meetings, because this is because you don't meet anymore. You have to push all the breast recognition together. Item 10 is tailoring services. It caught me off guard. I thought, that's a nice idea.
Excuse me, your time has expired. May we have the next speaker, please?
Our next speaker will come from the line of Joel Garcia. Please state the regular agenda items you'll be addressing today and whether you'll be addressing a public comment. You may begin.
Hi, this is Juan Garcia, Director of Mental Project James in East Los Angeles, District 1. I'll be speaking on items 61A and general public comment. I want to begin by supporting the comments that Andy Salcedo, Iberale, and Ruby Rivera gave, and specifically want to give my support for item number 32. But I'm calling today to support item 61A, which is, I would say, like the issues of Native American folks always get overlooked. There's a lot of issues regarding indigenous folks in the U.S. coming, not just in the U.S., but all over this continent coming to the forefront. And this is the work that I do. I'm an artist as well. So I'm involved in the arts and culture as well as cultural organizing. Not just here locally, but across the U.S. And it's always heartbreaking to be in these spaces and see how Native American folks get overlooked, whether it's in the arts and culture funding field here in the county or through the county. My organization is one of two organizations that support Native youth and Native artists. And so I want to thank the supervisors for putting this motion forward to support the Native American Legal Commission. This is long overdue. That they don't get the same support that other commissions do. It's just growth. But I appreciate that this is being looked at and that we're celebrating the 45th anniversary of the establishment of the commission. And so I encourage the supervisors to do what they can to give as much support to this commission as possible. The work that they do is immense. they deal with issues across all of LA County, and for as small as they are, they're tiny and mighty, but they need equitable support. That we're the county with the largest Native American and indigenous community within the boundaries.
Excuse me, your time has expired. May we have the next speaker, please?
Yes, our next speaker will come from the line of Dr. Paul Song. Please state the regular agenda items you are addressing today and whether you will address on general public comment. You may begin.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Dr. Paul Song. I'm a resident of the 3rd District. I will be speaking on item 27 and providing a general comment. First, I wanted to thank Supervisor Solis for offering this motion on the jail closure implementation team and Supervisor Kewell for co-authoring. As someone who's familiar with the work LA County has been doing in creating a care first vision for our most vulnerable residents, the board must take this step to fully commit to the closure of one of the most notorious jails in the country, the Men's Central Jail, which also at any given time is our nation's largest mental hospital. As a physician, I can tell you that putting and keeping people with serious medical and especially mental health needs in jail is not how we're going to help or treat them. Rather, incarceration is incredibly detrimental to their health and overall well-being. It can lead to symptoms worsening, onset of new symptoms, and frankly, jails do not offer the environment or setting to restore someone back to health. This isn't just a public safety matter, but it's also a public health matter as well. For years, the community and experts have pressed the board to close the jail, and the opportunity now has arisen through this motion. So I really urge the Board of Supervisors to vote in support of this motion by Supervisor Solis, and I want to thank you for all your efforts.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Next speaker will come from the line of Fanny Ortez. Please state the regular agenda items you're addressing today and whether you'll address on general public comment. You may begin.
Hi, my name is Fanny Ortiz. I'm a resident and supervisor of District 1, and I support the Healthy LA platform. This is a comment for items 9, 20, 27, 28, 30, 32, 33, 34, and 35. I support item 9, and I'm coming to enthusiastically support agenda item number 9, the county motion to extend the county orders for providing eviction protections to millions of tenants across LA County. Despite the recent reopening of the state economy, tenants are still struggling to find work, access rental assistance, and pay full rent moving forward. The only sensible move is for the eviction protections to be extended while tenants continue to recover from this global pandemic. I urge the board to extend the protections even farther in the proposed September 30th date. I also ask the board to continue banning evictions by landlords who are attempting to move in. We are still recovering from the effects of this pandemic, and tenants should not be evicted so soon by comparatively wealthier landlords who have no problem displacing tenants during the global pandemic. At minimum, landlords should not be able to displace vulnerable tenants and should pay relocation agreements to those that they do displace for eviction. Regarding item 20, I appreciate all the hard work many county departments have put into address the housing affordability and rental stability. We don't think SB 679 should change any of that important work. SB 679 addresses the question of how we ask for our collective effort to bring the 88 cities together with the county using new tools and strategies to address housing affordability. LACAHSA will help bring together the fragmented affordable housing efforts across the county and help us create a comprehensive holistic vision and approach to supporting low-income and working people. Our future coalition is a broad coalition of organizations committed to structural change in LA County. Urges the supervisors to view SB 679 not as competition, but rather as a mutual partner and asset in the work to support low-income people across the entire county. I support item 28, 32, 34. I urge you to continue to action to ensure that all residents of LA County are able to access living wages and safe, stable employment through the LA County. We must also work to create infrastructure that allows our most vital...
Excuse me, your time has expired. May we have the next speaker, please?
Yes, our next speaker comes from the line of Stephen Nadi. Please state the regular agenda items you'll be addressing today and whether you'll address on general public comment. You may begin.
Hi, my name is Stephen Nadi. My district is Supervisor District 2. My family's Thai restaurant has been in business since the 1980s, before I was born. We've moved locations throughout Koreatown a number of times. I've been in the latest location since 2014. My mom runs and operates this restaurant primarily by herself. She is currently and has been the only cook since at least 2016. This pandemic hit us really hard and we're struggling to stay afloat. We're months behind on rent, and even though we've managed to pay a third of the rent each month, the amount owed keeps growing. Business has not recovered to pre-pandemic levels since LA County has left its most restrictive tiers. Our landlords are always reminding us that we owe them money and have been constantly texting or visiting us in person to harass us regarding the unpaid rent. They've now sued us for breach of contract and fraud to get around the eviction moratorium. My dad passed away in December, and virtually in the same breath, the landlord offered condolences and reminded us that we still owe him back rent, and chose to raise our rent without consideration of our current circumstances. The landlord holds all the power here, and we're at his mercy. My business needs help.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
As a reminder, to address the board, if you have not already done so, please press 1 and then 0 at this time. Do not press 1 and 0 a second time, or you'll be removed from the queue.
We will now hear the Spanish interpretation of this reminder.
Como recordatorio para dirigirse a las supervisoras, si aún no lo ha hecho, presione 1 y luego 0 en este momento. No presione 1 y 0 por segunda vez o será eliminado de la fila. Gracias.
Thank you. May we have the first speaker, please?
Our next speaker comes from line of Prince Azamwengi. Please state the regular agenda items you're addressing today and whether you will address on general public comment. You may begin.
Hi, my name is Prince Osunki. I'm calling from SD1, Hilda Solis's district. I'm speaking on items 32, 34, general public comment. I work at Inclusive Atchison City, CDFI that provides technical assistance, financial products to small business owners, as well as conducts economic development research and policy advocacy. I strongly support items 32 and 34. At my organization, we've seen firsthand the economic burden of COVID-19 on small business owner clients we serve, who are predominantly BIPOC. Thus far, small business relief efforts have overlooked commercial rent debt. We know from PPP, which prioritizes employee compensation, that large businesses with access to financial institutions and legal support teams have been able to successfully apply to complicated business relief applications requiring a lion's share of aid. In other cases, we've seen state grant relief efforts not allocating enough funding to small businesses to cover at least 2 months of rent in Los Angeles. At my organizations, we're seeing a growing trend of business owners taking on additional personal loans to pay back rent in the thousands to tens of thousands. As a result, business owners are now finding themselves facing permanent closure on top of financial penalties to both their personal and business lines of credit. This impacts their ability in the future to access much needed financial products to conduct their business operations, as well as impacts their personal life as well, and begin the recovery from COVID-19. Even with the eviction moratorium, I also want to highlight there's been a growing rise in harassment from commercial landlords who are pressuring commercial tenants to pay back rent despite the grace period. They're also illegally raising rent, breaking leases, and refusing to negotiate payment plans. We need to be intentional and address commercial rent debt for small businesses. Community of colors especially need this relief, and these small businesses play a vital role in our local and regional economy. I also wanted to highlight item 34 and just say we need to also pass that and build local child care infrastructure and support women and people of color small businesses. Thank you to the Supervisor, Holly Mitchell, for uplifting these issues, and thank you to the rest of the board. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Our next participant will be Mary Tinneman-Verrill. Please state the regular agenda items you're addressing today and whether you will address on general public comment. You may begin.
I will be speaking on item number 27 and providing a general public comment. Good morning. My name is Mary Tiedemann-Verrill, and I was the ACLU jails monitor from 2006 to 2010. I'm also a resident of the 2nd District. I want to thank Supervisor Solis for authoring this motion on the jail closure implementation team and for Supervisor Keel for co-authoring. I spent 4 years regularly going inside Men's Central Jail to advocate for people incarcerated there. Seared in my mind are the dark, windowless cells with human beings just crammed in them. I would walk rows of cells, and grown men would beg me to get them to the doctor for chronic conditions such as diabetes or high blood pressure. Mothers and fathers would call us, desperate for their loved ones to get mental health care while they awaited trial. The hidden nooks and crannies where people would endure unspeakable violence. People with black eyes, broken bones, people terrified to speak up about what happened to them, sometimes worried that they would be stashed into a random cell and unable to call for help for weeks. There was one row of cells I remember in particular called 2904. It was just like a closet off the main hallway where, quote, problematic inmates would live for months, sometimes years. No windows and 2 layers of sally ports. And 11 years later, I can still remember what it smelled like. In addition, I recall working with the Sheriff's Department to implement very basic human necessities, such as going outside for a few hours a week. They would tell me they had problems meeting this simple requirement because the jail was so old and poorly designed. There was only one recreation yard, and the deputies would have to schedule people to go outside very early or very late hours because it was the only way to schedule someone in every time slot. Then they would have to walk people all the way across the jail to go outside so they could see the light of day, which was only even scheduled to happen once a week. Not only did this make it rare that it actually occurred, it was very unsafe. Men's Central Jail is an absolute horrible dungeon that has no place in our community. I know there's opportunity and movement to change the course of how we address issues of addiction and mental health in our county with community-based services and a care-first vision. Men's Central Jail should have no part in that conversation and should be depopulated and demolished as soon as possible. I urge the Board of Supervisors.
May we have the next speaker, please?
Our next speaker will be line from Sherry Thomas. Please state the regular agenda items you may be addressing today and whether you will address on general public comment. You may begin.
Good morning, Sherry Thomas, Quinault Indian Nation, speaking in support of item 61A and providing a general comment. As a member of the Los Angeles City County Native American Indian Commission, representing District 2, I'd like to thank the Board of Supervisors for your support of the 232,000 Native American Indians in Los Angeles County over the past 45 years. Your continued collaboration with the Commission has led to the procurement of community service block grants that have allowed for the empowerment of low-income families and individuals to become self-sufficient. In the past year, partnership with Los Angeles County has also supplied COVID testing, vaccinations, and emergency services to those desperately in need. Thank you again for your recognition of the Indian Commission's 45th year anniversary. We look forward to future collaboration with the upcoming 100-year anniversary of Native Americans becoming U.S. citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
And as a reminder, ladies and gentlemen, if you wish to address the board, if you have not done so already, please press 1 then 0 at this time. Do not press 1 and 0 a second time or you'll be removed from the queue. Our next speaker will be Fred Sutton. Please state the regular agenda items you are addressing today and whether you'll address on general public comment. You may begin.
Fred Sutton with the California Apartment Association, speaking on item number 9 and general public comment.
Thank you. You have 2 minutes. Please begin.
Well, Honorable Supervisors, last week the board, along with the rest of the state, celebrated the opening of California. However, rental operators are having a very strict and unreasonable local moratorium continue today that is essentially unchanged from where it was a year ago. It is concerning there are no timelines or more specific actions being taken today. The county must lift the moratorium for those unaffected by COVID. What rationale is being used to extend a rent freeze in an unincorporated county for those that have never faced economic or health impact due to the pandemic? While some renters continue to struggle, the extension fails to focus its protections on this shrinking population. Meanwhile, we have owners citing abuse of the moratorium. Some rental owners have struggled to pay property taxes and have been forced to sell their property.
while others continue to face disturbances in their communities and illegal Airbnbs due to policies that prohibit action. Owners cannot move their own families into their duplex. It's time for listing and for documentation requirements displaying hardship to be inserted into the county's ordinance. The state has created extensive protections and mechanisms to alleviate those who are facing hardship. Direct financial assistance should continue to be directed to those truly in need. We respectfully request all aspects of the housing moratorium be lifted for those not demonstrating impacts related to the pandemic. We can protect those in need while taking necessary and responsible steps to allow housing providers to resume normal operations. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Our next speaker will come from the line of Elizabeth Guzman. Please state the regular agenda items you are addressing today and whether you will address on general public comment. You may begin.
Elizabeth, I'm a resident and tenant and supervisor of District 2 and a tenant organizer with Safe Strategic Actions for Just Economy. I'm here to comment on item 9 and also to speak on item 20, 27, 28, 30, 32, 33, 34, and 35. I just want to say that I'm calling in support of the Healthy LA platform. And first of all, I am in support of item 9. I work with so many tenants throughout this pandemic who have faced difficulty and continue to face difficulties during this time. Despite the recent reopening of the state economy, they are still struggling to find work, access rental assistance, and pay for rent moving forward. The only sensible move is to extend the eviction protections to continue to help tenants recover from this pandemic, right? Which no one asked for, but they've been carrying the brunt of the impacts. Especially here in SD2, we saw a surge of unlawful lockouts when the pandemic began because folks were not following these protections. So having them in place is critical to continue to keep families safe and to keep people housed during this time. Tenants are going to be faced with years ahead, right, of recovery, which is why we're also asking, right, that the only way forward is a depth of recovery to keep Angelinos housed. I want to say that, landlords, right, should not be able to place vulnerable tenants and to pay relocation assistance to those that they have displaced throughout the pandemic. And I also want to name that evictions have never stopped since Rule 1 and 2 were lifted last year. Evictions continue to be processed through the courts. So this call on lifting the protections, right, is only a call to continue to expand the reasons they could evict for during a time of recovery. On items 28, 32, and 34, I also want to urge the board to take immediate action to ensure that all residents of LA County have accessible living wages and stable employment throughout the county. We must work to create the infrastructure that allow our...
Excuse me, your time has expired. May we have the next speaker, please?
Our next speaker will come from the line of Rosanna Arquette. Please state the regular agenda items you are addressing today and whether you will address on general public comment. You may begin.
Hi, can you hear me? Yes?
Yes, we can.
Hello? Okay, sorry. It wasn't on. Sorry. Hi, Rosanna Arquette. I'm so sorry. I want to thank Supervisor Solis and Supervisor Jewell for this motion. The Arquette family is very supportive of Dr. Astrid Hagar's work at the Violence Intervention Program for many years, and we work with her for the Alexis Project, which has been an incredible success story of quality care for the LGBTQ community, especially those with, foster and youth, so many homeless kids that are on the streets, and we are helping them in such an incredible way. To expand this would be, the most important thing. But I always will follow the work that Astrid Hagar does, because she always gets the job done. Anything she does, she puts her mind to. And the job is always done in the right way, which is the most compassionate way for all human beings, especially right now what we're focusing on, which is the LGBTQ community. and most importantly, LGBTQ trans youth. So I want and that's it. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. May we have the next speaker, please?
Our next speaker will come from the line of Courtney Valentine. Please state the regular agenda items you'll be addressing today and whether you'll address on general public comment. You may begin.
Hi, good morning. I'll be speaking on agenda item 27, agenda item 31, and general public comment. In regards to
you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. In regards to agenda item 27, myself and other community members have championed the closure of MCJ for years, and I support the board taking this next critical step of moving to close this deadly facility as laid out in the MCJ closure report delivered to the board earlier this year. However, I'm concerned that this new structure and process proposed in this item would cause additional delays and bureaucratic hurdles when the board has the power, in fact, to direct the CEO to close MCJ now. County departments and the community know what to do and have been working on this for years. I'm primarily concerned that the jail closure implementation team has no embedded community voices or accountability. It is imperative that impacted community members are specifically included in this next phase of closure. This motion also raises questions about who has a voice and how JCIT is implemented and who the director will be. I believe the team should consult with work groups such as the MCJ Closure and the Gender Responsive Advisory Committee to implement the closure plan for MCJ. I urge the board to take a bolder step to actually direct closing Men's Central Jail within the continued involvement of community voices and without creating more bureaucracy. I also urge this board to caution against the closure process that's centered around the strategy of attrition. The mandate to close jail should not be dependent on whether the current sheriff's department decides to change its arrest priorities or whether the Department of Probation prioritizes technical violations, for example. In regards to agenda item 31, trans and gender nonconforming people like myself experience extremely high levels of discrimination and inequality in medical settings, and therefore we're at higher risk of experiencing negative psychological outcomes due to the inequity we experience. 39% of the trans population has experienced psychological distress in the past month, as compared to 5% of the overall population. In medical settings, this means that trans folks face refusal of treatment, harassment, discrimination, and inadequate medical care. For TGI people of color, the medical racism in the healthcare field compounds this already horrible treatment and causes trans folks of color to experience the highest rates of homelessness, suicide, unemployment, and discrimination, many of which ties back to their inability to access gender-affirming care. Gender-affirming care is incredibly important in decreasing rates of medical inequality and has been proven to reduce suicidal ideation and psychological distress, including depression and anxiety, because patients don't have to fear discrimination in a gender-affirming setting led by TGI care providers. Therefore, it's important that TGI-specific services are provided by organizations such as Trans Latina Coalition that are led by TGI people. The plan that is in this motion calls for must include community-based services led by the people they are serving. In regards to general public comment, Sheriff Villanueva and his targeted attacks on the homeless community in Venice, I'm appalled by them, and I ask that you swiftly disarm the sheriff through the budget. The Board of Supervisors can fully exercise its budgetary authority by removing funding from the LESD host program and do all in its power to stop the sheriff's plans for mass forced displacement and criminalization of the Venice Boardwalk residents. The county CEO must pull host funding from the final budget and reallocate it to community-based supportive services like housing. LESD has never been, nor will they ever be equipped to have the responsibility to deliver services ensuring the health and welfare of LA's unhoused.
Excuse me, your time has expired. May we have the next speaker, please?
Our next speaker will come from the line of Lori Archie. Please state the regular agenda items you're addressing today and whether you will address on general public comment. You may begin.
Hi, yes, I'll be addressing number 9 and general public comment. My name is Lori Archie. My family's been living in temporary housing for almost 6 months now due to the lack of owner-occupy eviction. A wealthy single guy has been taking advantage of the moratorium, leaving me and my family to not be able to occupy our primary residence. There needs to be a middle ground in the moratorium, so I support the owner-occupied carve-out. However, I ask the board to look into more ways to protect homeowners in the next revision of the moratorium, as there are a lot of homeowners who have been impacted by COVID and are getting zero protection. Here are some stories I've heard. Landlords who can't afford their property can't sell because of denial of entry to do inspections and appraisals. Lady who had cancer who can't go through chemo had to live in her garage because she couldn't move back into her own home. A lady who wants to move into one side of her duplex to take care of her father who has Alzheimer's. Tenant won't move out. Tenant occupied unit in La Puente, unable to pay rent, lost his job. He owns a home in Lancaster and can't move back in his home. A single father in his 60s has a 14-year-old boy. Mother's not in the picture because she has mental illness. The father's unable to live in his home because it's tenant occupied. It's unfair that tenants are totally and 100% protected while homeowners are not protected at all. So I urge you guys to pass the owner-occupied carve-out and also look into more ways to protect homeowners. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Our next speaker will come from the line of Pamela Augustin. Please state the regular agenda items you are addressing today and whether you will address on general public comment. You may begin.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Pamela Agustin. I'm a resident of District 5 and a community organizer in District 1 with the Eastside Leads Coalition. I speak today in support of items 9, 27, 28, 30, and 32 to 35. Supervisors, the concerns and confusion that I have heard from tenants in my organizing work, both in District 1 and 5, resonate in every county district. I know this because since July of last year, my coalition has connected with over 37,000 tenants through calls and virtual workshops under our Stay Housed Every County program. Yesterday, Monday, June 21st, we held a workshop and an overwhelming amount of questions came up from tenants. These questions were really around the fear of the likely listing of SB 91 in our local county protections on June 30th. In this workshop, tenants expressed also fear over not being able to pay their full rent in by July, and therefore being evicted soon after. I also heard anxiety over not being able to pay the 25% of past due rent by the June 30th deadline, because tenants are still facing unemployment. Lastly, tenants also shared how notifications and communication from the state rental assistance program has been slow. As you know, there have been major gaps in accessing existing tenant protections and rent relief due to many reasons, including language and tech barriers. The state has failed us by not taking swift action to ease these concerns by the June 30th deadline. But you, supervisors, millions of county tenants rely on you, and we cannot wait for the state. We are looking to you to provide protections, especially the lower income tenants who are still struggling to find employment and are faced with crushing amounts of rent debt. So I ask you to please support item 9 and protect these tenants from enhancing the safeguards around owner move-ins that are currently proposed in today's motion. I also ask you to support items 27, 28, 30, and 32, 33, 34, and 35, and the entire Reimagine LA platform. Regarding 22, 28, 32, and 34, I appreciate your efforts in supporting local small businesses and micro-employers, especially businesses that are women-owned and owned by people of color. Item 32 is so important because resolving the resulting commercial rent debt is vital for an equitable recovery.
May we have the next speaker, please?
The next speaker will come from the line of Genevieve Clavriel. Please state the regular agenda items you're addressing today and whether you'll address on general public comment. You may begin.
Yes, good afternoon, Supervisor. Good morning. Dr. Genevieve Clavriel. I want to speak to items 37 and 42. I cannot believe on item 37 you allowed LASA not to present the report. Again, it's postponed until August 10th. It has been postponed since October 29, 2019. This is totally unacceptable. Please, make sure.
Hello? May we have the next speaker, please?
Yes, next speaker will come from the line of Andres Kowoa. Please state the regular agenda items you're addressing today and whether you'll address on general public comment. You may begin.
Ms. Cornish, you're speaking to items 28, 55 and general public comments. On item 28, we urge you to pass this motion by Supervisor Solis to finally open up county employment to non-citizens. LA County is the most immigrant-rich county in our country, yet immigrants face many barriers. In fact, the pandemic revealed the stark inequities immigrants face. In one important example, immigrants have feared going to county hospitals because of the conspicuous presence of sheriff's deputies. Another barrier is employment, and I can speak from personal experience here. As a law student at UCLA Law, my dream was to pursue public defense at the LA County Public Defender's Office. But I was not a U.S. citizen, and so I was shut out. Thankfully, I was able to pursue immigrant rights law at the ACLU, and one of my projects was to help strengthen the Public Defender's Office, the capacity to provide quality representation to non-citizen clients. In short, the county workforce should reflect the people they serve, and nowhere is this more important than at the Public Defender's Office. On item 55, the OIG's report only confirms that we've been facing an all-out human rights crisis here in our county at the hands of Sheriff Trump of Los Angeles. The ACLU rarely calls for elected officials' resignation. To do so, we have to meet a high threshold where the elected official represents a grave and imminent threat to civil liberties. Last summer, our ACLU board determined that Sheriff Villanueva met this high threshold. He has become the single greatest threat and danger to our civil liberties and really to the actual lives of Angelenos. Villanueva is the Trump of Los Angeles. At the ACLU, we have been suing Donald Trump almost every other week for about 2 years before Villanueva came in. And we saw the long list of similarities right away. Ever since he rehired Carl Doyen, made a complete bait and switch on immigration, and killed the active investigations into serious misconduct at rates that were unseen in prior administrations going back to former Sheriff Lee Baca. And so it's been downhill from there, including Villanueva's targeted retaliation against community advocates organizing to hold him accountable. In particular, he doubled down on family members. On May 4th, we released a report on Sheriff harassing the families, focusing on 2 families, and the board passed an important motion. The day after, Villanueva on his Instagram Live singled out and identified by name these 2 families. On the same day, Villanueva has been harassing and threatening county stakeholders with a mandate to provide oversight in a pattern of conduct that experts believe rises to the level of extortion. And he has further descended into Trumpism recently, going on all the alt-right media, stepping up his fear-mongering and othering of folks in the margins, in particular, exploiting a crisis of houselessness, raising the alarm about so-called unhoused folks from out of town invading and, quote, destroying our way of life. In fact, Villanueva himself has invaded Venice and the city of LA with armed deputies threatening unhoused residents. Supervisors, we need you to do everything in your power to step in. At a minimum, remove any of our taxpayer funds going to Villanueva's host program and instead reinvest them in community-based supportive housing.
Thank you. May we have the next speaker, please?
Next speaker will come from the line of James Wheeler. Please state the regular agenda items you're addressing today and whether you'll address on general public comment. You may begin.
Thank you. I'll be speaking on 22, 27, and general comment.
Thank you. You have 3 minutes. Please begin.
Good morning, everyone. Madam Chair and Board of Supervisors. I'm James Wheeler. I'm the president of the Association for Los Angeles Deputy Sheriffs. I'm speaking on behalf of our 8,000 members, many of whom spend decades working in jails. First, Men's Central Jail is a vital but aged cog in our jail system. We all know that. It should come as no surprise that our deputies, the inmates, the medical staff, and the entire support team deserve a better facility. ALAD shares many concerns with the community stakeholders. Let me just touch on a few. The simple truth is that LA County and its population of over 10 million people need a centralized, efficient, modern jail facility. 96% of the inmates currently housed at MCJ.
Holy shit.
Begin.
Thank you. I'll be speaking on 22, 27, and general comment.
Thank you. You have 3 minutes. Please begin.
Good morning, everyone. Madam Chair
and Board of Supervisors. I'm James Wheeler. I'm the president of the Association for Los Angeles Deputy Sheriffs. I'm speaking on behalf of our 8,000 members, many of whom spend decades working in jails. First, Men's Central Jail is a vital but aged cog in our jail system. We all know that. It should come as no surprise that our deputies, the inmates, the medical staff, and the entire support team deserve a better facility. ALAD shares many concerns with the community stakeholders. Let me just touch on a few. The simple truth is that LA County and its population of over 10 million people need a centralized, efficient, modern jail facility. 96% of the inmates currently housed at MCJ are incarcerated for felony violations, with roughly 50% of those persons estimated to suffer from mental illness. A high percentage of these people will be ineligible or poorly suited for transfer to community facilities. A centralized facility allows populations eligible for transition better access to community resources. A centralized facility better ensures compliance with U.S. Department of Justice and other legal mandates. The elimination or the inappropriate reduction of a centralized jail facility will move inmates hours away from their family and support networks. It remains vitally important that we design a system that has sufficient local capacity to prevent overcrowding and inhumane conditions. The county has already spent money to commission the JFA Institute to research these issues, and their report is due to be published in the next few weeks. It would be irresponsible to move forward without receiving and considering the research the county is already paying for. Rush government has proven to be bad government, and it benefits no one. ALAD urges you to consider the input of the county employees who carry the responsibility for the day-to-day care of our jail population. I thank you for your time and look forward to working with your offices. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, the public comment period has concluded.
The sheriff wanted to address the board. This is a time where he can address the board now, because we've concluded public comment.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. And regarding agenda item number 27, I have a couple of comments. First and foremost, in your intro to this thing, you talk about this 2020 census and the population of Black Americans and Latinos in the county jail vis-a-vis their population in LA County jail. Well, I will tell you this, the population and the demographics in the county jail are an exact reflection of the suspects who commit crime in LA County. So when you talk about the oppression, well, actually, criminal offenders do oppress members of the community, and the disproportionate impacts victims of crime overwhelmingly are Black and Latino. They come from those communities. So there is no targeting, so to speak, that somehow it disproportionately affects them because of race or ethnicity. That is a fallacy, and it's a fake argument. So let's end that one right now. Number two, releasing 4,500 inmates onto the streets is not a legal option for the county to embark in, and trying to cram 12,500 inmates into 8,500 beds is not a legal argument either that can be made. It's unconstitutional. And Government Code Section 22605 clearly states that the sheriff runs a county jail, and I have full intention to carry out my mandate to run the county jail in a constitutional manner and to safeguard the safety and the health of every single inmate in the county jail. Your proposition of just closing it because you want to care first, well, you're only caring about actually the people that are involved in crime. You're not caring about the victims of crime. You're not caring about the communities that will be impacted by a flood of violent offenders being released into the community. And that, I'm not sure how you're going to square that away with your own constituents in your districts. Right now, we have roughly 15,000 inmates in the jail system. I have now, and this is 2021, I have 5,960 violent crimes that have been committed. That means there's 5,960 violent felons that the overwhelming majority of them have not been arrested yet. Where do they go when we release and reduce the capacity of the county jail? To the Care First Village? That's not going to work. I think we need to be realistic, we need to think long-term, and we need to incorporate the voices of victims of crime, honest, law-abiding citizens, and taxpayers to end the madness about this Care First idea that doesn't involve anybody but criminal offenders. The rest of the community is suffering at the hands of these criminal offenders. We need to hold them accountable, and where we can provide for their rehabilitation, by all means. Let's work hard to increase the capacity to rehabilitate, but you're not doing that. You're just trying to eliminate the capacity to hold people accountable. Not acceptable.
Is expired. Members, our time for public speakers has ended. Thank you all that called in to speak. If you were unable to provide your comments, you may submit written comments as indicated on the agenda. We will continue to accept all written comments that come in during the meeting, which will become part of the record. Madam Executive Officer, please indicate the agenda item numbers on which we will be voting.
The following items 8, 11, and 12, 14 through 20. On item 22, these items fails to carry for the lack of 3 votes. 23 through 26, 28 through 30, 36, 38 through 43, 45 through 49, 50 through 54, 56 through 60, 61B, 61D as revised, 61F through 61I, 61J as revised, 61K, and 64.
Moved by Supervisor Kuehl and seconded by Supervisor Hahn to approve these items. Madam Executive Officer, please call the roll.
Supervisor Mitchell.
Aye.
Supervisor Mitchell, aye. Supervisor Kuehl.
Aye.
Supervisor Kuehl, aye. Supervisor Hahn.
Aye.
Supervisor Hahn, aye. Supervisor Barger.
Aye.
Supervisor Barger, aye. Supervisor Solis.
Aye.
Supervisor Solis, aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Before we take up public comment on the public hearing items, the Executive Officer will read the short titles of each public hearing item.